At that time, I was really struggling and financially. And so what I was doing was, at that time, it was just really popular to win money in singing competitions all around the SGV. And so I would know enough Chinese to read the poster, which said singing competition, where the audition was, and what time, and what date. So I was just going around, and I at that point I had won pretty much every competition here. I won every single competition that you could win in this area because I was using that to supplement my income.
Well, I love the San Gabriel Valley.
Welcome to the My SGV podcast.
So I grew up here and I still live in Alhambra.
I was raised in between Temple City and Alhambra.
Eventually resided in South San Gabriel.
Our mission is to capture and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley.
Monterey Park has pretty much been my whole life.
Well, I'm proud to say that I was born and raised in the San Gabriel Valley.
We believe our diversity is what makes the SGV great. And no matter where you are from, in the San Gabriel Valley, you will feel welcome.
Welcome to the My SGV podcast. Normally you will hear Russell doing this introduction. He's off today, so I'll be doing the show myself. And luckily we have a wonderful and a great guest today. So it will be a very interesting show. As you know, we try to capture the history, contemporary history, and the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. And today we have, as I said, a very interesting, and should be a great show with the guest that we have today. So I do want to mention Paris Baguette as one of our sponsors, and thank you to Paris Baguette for providing the pastries that we'll share with our guests today. Let's see. Victoria is sitting in the producer's chair. Mm-hmm. Anything we need to do? Am I missing anything yet, or we're?
No, you're doing good so far.
Oh, yeah. Wow, great! I hope I passed the audition. So, in any event, why don't we just get right into our guest? I've got a note card here that really describes this multiple talent personality. I don't know what a polymath is, but she's described as being a polymath, and maybe she can tell me what that is. But let me just read to you some of the things that are on this note card. She can serenade you with a violin. She can charm you with a guitar and dazzle you with the piano, all in a single performance. She's been on American Idol. I believe she was maybe the winner of Taiwan Idol. We can talk about that. And she's amassed over 21 million YouTube views and a fan base of over 2 million people. She's also a comedic force with a sharp wit. And on top of that, she's an entrepreneur. She is a student, as I understand it, at Columbia University Business School. She's fluent in 13 languages. I really want to ask about that. And is a founder of, I hope I pronounce it correctly, dōTERRA essential oils. Mm-hmm. So she's influential, she's multifaceted, and she's incomparable. So I want to welcome Olivia Thai.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
All of that, how did it sound? Is that really you?
I mean, I don't talk about those things on a daily basis,
right,
but yeah, sure.
It sounds like you, right?
Sounds like that was the right bio.
Yeah, good. Well, I didn't get the guests mixed up.
Thanks.
So, first thing we like to do is ask you, what is your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
I was born right here at Garfield Hospital in Monterey Park, like a lot of my classmates, and I grew up here. So I went to elementary school at McKinley, middle school at Jefferson. I went to high school at Gabrielino, right by here.
Yeah, just a couple blocks down the street.
Yeah, I was only there for a year, which is a story for, I guess, if we want to get into it. But I was only there for a year, and
then went on to.
Then I went on to. I took a lot of classes at ELAC. So shout out to East LA College. Did a lot of growing up there. I started there when I was 13. So,
oh wow!
Yeah.
So you were probably in a program that took talented people and gave them early admission.
Sort of. I think it was more like I found the right forms to fill out and then snuck my way in there. So yeah.
So San Gabriel then is your home.
It is my home. I lived in Hawaii for a few years, and I guess the only times I've ever left LA, or not LA, but SGV specifically, was when I moved to Hawaii for 5 years, and then I was at Berkeley for a little bit for undergrad, and then Columbia, which was happening this past year, but I was flying back and forth, so I never actually officially lived in New York. And so, and back, just bought my first home here in San Gabriel
congratulations.
Again. Thank you.
Oh, and I saw on Instagram you are expecting twins.
I am expecting right now.
Oh, congratulations. When are you expecting?
So I was told to give a season, so I'm going to say in the winter time.
Oh, wow. Well, that is nice. Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a whole new life that you can expect.
I have no idea what to expect. I've never changed a diaper before. I've never even held a baby for an extended period of time.
Oh, really? Not family members?
Well, I have, but it's always been really scary.
Yeah,
their necks are kind of fragile.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how to baby. So the fact that I'm having two at once is really interesting.
Oh yeah, boy, that's going to be a challenge, but it's going to be a great time of life. I think you'll find that.
I'm excited. I've worked with kids for a really long time, teaching music in San Gabriel as well. So, besides teaching the music and kind of tutoring for several years in the education space, I don't really know about caring for them and keeping them alive.
Yeah,
so
right.
That'll be my new college program, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you'll find there's a lot of it. It comes naturally. I mean, I think every new parent is afraid, scared, bewildered, but it's amazing how natural it actually is.
Thank you. That's reassuring. That's good to know.
Yeah. I always feel sorry for first children because they probably. I found that when we had our second child, like you knew the system, you knew how to do it. You weren't so overly cautious. The first child probably doesn't get is probably treated a little bit too cautiously, too careful. But anyway, that'll be great. Well, that's going to change your life. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your life. A very interesting background. I'm, first of all, interested in 13 languages. Is that right?
I think that might be inflated. I think I have to update that. At this point, I have either dabbled in or officially learned over 20.
Oh, really?
I wouldn't say I'm fluent.
Mm-hmm.
I can read a lot of Korean, some Japanese, a lot of Chinese, and there's another dialect that I'll probably dive into, very specific to the SGV actually, called Chu Chao.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. So I speak that fairly fluently.
Oh, so is that what your ethnic background is?
Yeah. So I am, I guess, half Chu Chao, half Cantonese.
Okay.
And we're Chinese from Vietnam, which is very specific to the SGV as well.
Yeah.
And my parents each actually speak 7 or 8 languages each. Mm-hmm. And I grew up also being pretty immersed into French culture as well, because my dad is fluent in French, even though he grew up in Vietnam, because the French took over.
The French influence there.
Yeah, really. I mean, just a cool childhood in that regard. Eating French food, learning French at an earlier age, listening to French music, and also only speaking really Cantonese and Chu Chao at home, and then hearing. We didn't really learn Vietnamese just because our family is ethnically Chinese.
Right.
So, I mean, English was my fourth language. So I talked to, even though I was born here.
You were born here.
Exactly. I was born here, but I didn't learn English until I was 6.
Really?
Yeah, because we just grew up at home. My grandma's monolingual, and that's why I speak Chu Chao, because that's all she spoke, and she raised me like a lot of immigrant families do, right? So my grandma, her name is Ama, she would only speak Chu Chao. So I had to learn that because she's monolingual. And then to the rest of the family, I was speaking Cantonese, did a lot of Chinese karaoke growing up.
Oh, yeah.
And then because I only spoke Cantonese or Chu Chao, I actually grew up watching all the Disney movies in Cantonese.
Oh, wow.
I thought that TV was only in Cantonese until I was 6 or 7. They gave me the power of the remote control.
Yeah.
And then I was like, what is this? Disney, Nickelodeon. And I think that's how I eventually picked up English, and then at school, of course. So
right. And so now English is probably your most comfortable language, I'm guessing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Eventually that all shifted.
Yeah, right. You probably, I know in my own situation, or not mine, but as far as my children, they grew up learning a non-English language first, but immediately they learned English, and the previous languages kind of fell to the wayside.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, I wish they had been able to continue, learning the other languages.
Right.
But it happens, doesn't it? You just, English takes over.
It does. I think that's one of the beautiful parts about being in the SGV is we're constantly still going to family parties, at the restaurants. There's still so many restaurants here where you can't order unless you speak Chinese.
Yeah.
I think they've kind of evolved and assimilated a little bit. There's some of the restaurants that I grew up going to used to not have any English on the menus. You would just have to, you either spoke it or you didn't eat there. You had to point at pictures.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And how about your friends as you were growing up? What was their language situation?
I grew up with a lot of Cantonese friends, a lot of Chu Chao friends. I'm very close with my cousins as well. So getting that practice in for Cantonese and Chu Chao especially are pretty frequent here. I would say. I think Mandarin, I get a lot of practice with that outside of like family things, and most Chinese people speak Mandarin, right? So I do get a lot of Mandarin practice outside of family things, but sometimes even family speaking Mandarin too.
Yeah.
And then Vietnamese too. We kind of throw some words in here or there, but never a full conversation in Vietnamese. So it's really interesting to have all those cultures.
What about some of the other languages? You mentioned Korean, which I always perk up when I hear that. I can read and write Korean and speak Korean.
Amazing.
Yeah, right. Wow. I don't speak it so well now, but reading and writing, as you know, is simple.
Yeah,
it's
alphabetical.
Yeah, so. It's like, I think 24 characters or letters, whatever. Yeah, it's very simple. But how did you learn Korean?
I thought that I could pick up Korean from, my favorite app, Duolingo.
Oh, right.
I realized very quickly that Duolingo, I don't think they're strong in terms of Asian languages. I did finish the entire Chinese, the course program because I grew up learning traditional Chinese.
Okay.
So I really wanted to get a grasp
And I don't remember, is Duolingo traditional or
simplified?
Is it simplified?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get an idea. I still don't know simplified as well as I want to, but I did use Duolingo to get a good grasp of kind of a general idea of how simplified works and how it translates from traditional.
Right.
So that's why I did the whole Chinese program on Duolingo, just finished the whole thing. And then for Korean, I found that there was a different app that worked a little better, which is Lingodeer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Lingodeer was able to break it down a little bit more so that I could actually learn how to read it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then I took it a little step further, and I bought some workbooks so I can trace. And my nieces, I have 3 nieces that are half Korean.
Okay.
And so that was really motivating.
So you taught yourself. Okay, you weren't in the environment or didn't have a teacher.
No,
Oh,
not
wow.
for
Well,
Korean.
that's pretty impressive then. So you can, you know all the correct ways to write?
I would say most of it, and the writing is very similar to, you have to follow certain stroke orders like Chinese.
Yeah.
And so it was, compared to Chinese, it was fairly simple.
Well,
to
the
learn.
most difficult thing I always experienced with Korean is just the sentences are backwards.
Yes.
So
Sentence structure and grammar becomes more difficult with both Korean and Japanese.
yeah.
I think they might share some similarities there.
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah, so it's not quite the same structure.
What's another maybe arcane language that you might know?
I would say, I married a Cuban.
Okay.
So he's a Cuban, well, not a Cuban from Cuba,
but
but
can speak this Cuban Spanish.
very Cuban Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of times, I mean, of course, with any good Cuban family, we learn all the important words first.
Yeah, right.
So I know how to say a lot of bad words in Spanish, Cuban Spanish specifically.
Yeah.
So when we say those words with, Mexican Spanish speakers, they don't know what we're saying.
Right. Yeah. So it's your little secret. Wow. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, and that's another thing I've learned from dealing with Cubans and Mexicans is, the difference in the way they speak.
Yeah, I think growing up very Asian and growing up around mostly Mexican Americans or Mexican people, I realized that, outside of California, I guess, or a lot of states, especially in Miami, we visit Miami pretty frequently, and there's just so many different cultures, and not all of them get along.
Right.
It's kind of like all the Asian countries too, like all the ethnicities, like we kind of bubble in our own space, and it's kind of cool to have nieces that are half Korean because I got exposed to Korean culture, and their grandmother only speaks Korean, their halmoni, so it's really just it's cool to see all the cultures mixed together.
Yeah. And San Gabriel Valley is just incredible for that, isn't it?
Amazing.
Victoria, anytime you want to say something, go ahead. Don't let me dominate,
Oh, no, it's fine. It's cool listening to guys talk about languages. I only know English, so it's interesting and cool to hear other people talk about different languages that they know.
I've always been interested in, people who are good at learning languages, and it sounds like Olivia really is.
Well, I think it's just something I've always naturally been interested in. I majored in linguistics in college too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You went to Berkeley.
I did for undergrad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you majored in linguistics. What does that mean? You're studying like just different language history or?
Yeah, so officially it's the science of language that we've basically every day, when I describe how the major worked, every day we're solving, I want to say IQ puzzles, IQ questions about how languages are put together. So they're all basically like IQ questions with whatever country or area they decided that we were going to learn that day. So every single day we got to dive into different languages. There's a lot of different languages from Africa. We even learned about the cliques.
Oh, yeah.
Korean, Japanese, Chinese dialects, Tibetan languages, and there's different dialects in Tibet, Malaysian. There was just every language we could possibly dive into, and we, depending on what we were breaking down that day, whether it was grammatical or sentence structure, morphology, syntax. There was also history. So the way that we were learning, I basically took another American history course at Berkeley that was based off of the languages that were in the United States before it even became the United States. So a lot of Native American languages we've gotten into. Mayan. There was a whole class about Mayan history and Mayan culture and the language. And then, like the U.S., there was actually a debate when they were trying to figure out what the national language was, and it was either going to be German or English.
Really? When was that?
That was when the country first became a country. So I'm going to guess 1700s.
Okay.
Yeah. And I thought that was fascinating, that half of the people were speaking German.
Right.
And now who's speaking German?
And I didn't realize that.
Right? I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
I just thought the whole major was so fascinating.
Yeah.
Was it particularly useful? I'm not sure.
Well, but it helped you in your thinking ability, organizing your thinking ability, and so on, right?
Yeah, that's why I describe the major as a major in which you are constantly being challenged to solve puzzles and just think critically on how something can be solved. And
I think that's so important. And this is a more obscure, I guess, type of thinking critical, major.
Right.
But I mean, a very effective one.
Yeah.
A very good one. So when did you graduate from Berkeley?
It actually took me 19 years to get my...
19 years. So you were there 19 years. Okay.
I was at ELAC for... it was 2002 was my first class at ELAC, and my last class at ELAC was 2019.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I started at 13, but a lot of personal and family issues came up in my teen years, and I just had to take a big break. And I tried to go back to college so many times, but just didn't happen until 2020. That's when I finally decided to finish my bachelor's degree at Berkeley.
And how long did you live? Or I assume you lived up there.
I was only there. It's really funny because it was
it's
COVID.
Pandemic. Oh, exactly. Yeah, right.
So I lived there. I thought it would be so fun to be in the dorms as a 30-year-old. It was a very never been kissed movie moment where I was like,
exactly.
I am a little too old for this. So I was living in the dorms, a little miserable living situation, but loved the academics.
Yeah.
What an education. I think UC Berkeley really holds its reputation in terms of challenging us as students to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
And just a great education, but I just felt like I'm not sure that I was supposed to live there and be an 18-year-old student as a 30-year-old. That was very challenging for sure. But luckily for me, the pandemic hit. I know a lot of people were having a tough time during that time, but I was like, oh my gosh, get me out of here.
It was good for you, huh?
It was. And then because of that, I actually ended up getting a minor in journalism too.
Oh.
And so, I think the pandemic really, really saved me there, and I was able to get that degree. And although I do feel like they made it even more challenging because we were remote.
Yeah.
And it's not a remote school. So that was really, really great to be able to finish my degree right here from the SGV.
Yeah.
Get my degree from Berkeley, but also I think they went out of their way to make it more challenging.
So you in no way have lived a traditional life.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. Your years from 18 to 30 were, you didn't go to a traditional college setting. And did you miss that? I mean, you didn't know what it was like, but did you ever want to be, in a way, normal? If you know what I mean?
I think I've never, in my entire life, even from childhood, felt like I was normal. I just always kind of felt like a freak of nature. I mean, going to school, all the other kids were already speaking English, and I'm born here, and then not like I was born here, went to elementary school,
Right.
and even in preschool, I only spoke Cantonese. I made a friend there that also only spoke Cantonese, and then I didn't make any other friends because I couldn't speak to them. And I didn't know what I was doing there. I guess in preschool you're just taking naps and singing songs or something. I don't know. You know?
Right.
So I just didn't. I just always kind of felt like an outcast. I was never. I guess I've just lived the outcast life. I never played sports. I was always just kind of a music geek, and somehow. I mean, at some point I was president of my class in like elementary and middle school, but I don't even know how I got that.
Yeah.
I just don't know, because I was like, I don't know. Nobody really knows who I am. I'm just kind of like a nerdy music freak.
And so a music freak, meaning did your parents make you go through, a lot of music lessons?
Ironically enough, my parents were fairly hands-off. They're just those kinds of parents. They're very, they didn't have a lot of rules. So one of the things I kind of talk about a lot that's unique is I've never had an alcoholic drink in my entire life.
Really?
Yeah, no drinking, no smoking, no drugs, nothing. And it's strange because I was also in the music industry for the majority of my adult life, which is heavily into that, right? And
Right.
so, and I credit that to my parents who didn't have any rules. They were just like, no, go ahead. You wanna try it? Okay, go try it.
So what was it about them that was so hands off? I mean, did they? What kind of people were they? So I think my parents really, all they truly cared about was that we did well in school. They really didn't care too much about the other stuff as long as we did well in school. Like they weren't even very present because, like a lot of immigrant parents, they were working all the time, constantly working and trying to provide, and it was a tough What kind
time.
of work did they do?
My family, the history is back in Vietnam. I come from generations of entrepreneurs. So my grandfather, my great grandfather, my great grandparents, they were all entrepreneurs on all sides. So they moved to Vietnam to become entrepreneurs. They continue to be entrepreneurs there, and then when they came here, they continued to do that. And my dad's generation were selling clothes or seamstresses or providing basics and clothing from, I would say, the 80s and the 90s and then to the 2000s time until they didn't do it anymore. And they were doing a lot of wholesale. So that was their line of work.
So they're just caught up in doing their work and letting... how many siblings did you have? So
I'm the youngest of 3, and my sister is 10 years older, and my brother is 13 years older.
Oh, so you were a latchkey.
Yeah, for sure.
Huh?
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and by the time I came along, there were even less rules.
Yeah, sure.
There was just nothing. I was just left being raised by my grandparents and the TV, I guess.
Yeah.
And a computer.
So were you lonely?
Oh, for sure. I think growing up it almost felt like I was an only child.
Yeah.
Right? Because I was so much younger, and by the time I kind of have solid memories, core memories, I feel like my siblings were already kind of off to college and doing their thing, and I feel like I'm a lot closer to them now than I was when I was a child. There's just such a huge age difference.
Yeah.
They almost feel like a second set of parents to me.
Yeah.
Actually, not almost. They do.
Yeah.
They practically are my second.
A different generation.
Yeah. If anything, I'm a lot closer to them than my actual parents.
Yeah.
My parents are the same age as my husband's grandparents.
Okay, so let me figure this out.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, they're old.
Well, they might be legally, but in their hearts, they are still partying until 4 a.m.
Oh,
and
is
I'm
that right?
dead asleep by 9. So
Yeah. Wow. Never had a drink.
No.
That's great. I mean, I'm kind of proud of myself where I don't drink at all. I mean, not that like, I shouldn't say that judgmentally, right? But,
yeah, it's not.
But
no
I
judgment.
find it very, I find that I'm very, that I'm sort of treated as a curiosity, right? Because I don't know anything about drinks or drinking, or,
Same.
have no interest in it. I'd rather have an Oreo cookie shake.
Absolutely.
But yeah. So yeah, but I mean, you've never. So I at least had tried it a few times, but wow. Well, congratulations. Again, not judgmentally. It's just someone who doesn't want to do it. That's fine.
Yeah, and a lot of people, will ask me certain questions like, "Oh, you don't drink at all, and you've never drank." Well, once it's like you've never drank, then they ask,
"Are you an alcoholic?"
Yes. Or am I an AA?
Yeah.
Or am I Mormon?
Or Mormon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Is Mormon or AA? And when I lived in Asia, they thought you were sick for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's a weird thing. But yeah. Well, let's talk about some other parts of your life. Okay, help me here, Victoria. I know we're probably due for a break or something.
Yeah, can we see the
okay, the item of significance. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
What is your item of significance?
So I have a funny story. Russell and I were talking about what would be good things. Originally, I was saying that I should bring in my guzheng, which is like a Chinese harp, my latest instrument and fascination.
That's the long single string.
Yes, it's like this. It's also called a koto or like a other. It plays like this, right?
Yeah.
And then he was like, "No, maybe we should bring the guitar so you can play a song." So we're like, "Okay, great idea. Let's bring the guitar." Last week, I think it was last week, I came back from Colombia. My last weekend at Colombia, and
some crummy airline,
some silly airline. I would never check in my guitar. But it was gate checked, which means it was checked in with the strollers. And I'm assuming that they put the guitar down first and just threw strollers on top of it.
Oh, no.
And I unzipped it. It was actually right before a show. I went to New York to play my last show of the year. And I opened the thing to practice my set right before the show, the day before the show, and my guitar was decapitated.
Oh, geez, that's terrible.
It was. I didn't even know a guitar could do that.
Yeah.
It just completely broke off. So.
And that was before a show. So what could you do?
It was the day. Well, luckily it was. I think I was. I mean, I guess that's part of my personality. I'm just a very calm problem solver. So when something like that happens, I just immediately thought, okay, I'm playing at the Triad. It's a pretty prominent theater in New York. They have a grand piano. So I wasn't planning to play too many piano songs, but then I was like, okay, I can do a full set on piano. That is totally fine.
Okay.
I can do that. That was just kind of...
Wow, to be able to pivot like that, you're very talented.
Thank you. I don't know how well I did, to be honest, but I was just like, okay, you know what? No guitar. And then on top of that, the violin was in the guitar case, and they also broke that. So both instruments were just corpses of instruments at that point.
Devastating.
It was, yeah. And then so I pivoted and just decided, okay, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do the whole show on the grand piano at the theater. And then, of course, I posted about it because why wouldn't I post? This is great content.
Yeah.
So I posted about the guitar and the violin being destroyed. And then my performance mates they lent me their guitar. So I was able to play half the set on guitar and then half on the piano.
Oh.
And that was great. It was just a cool way to close out my last show of the year, happened to be in New York. I wish it was here in the SGV, but
really?
Yeah, it was just such a great show. It was sold out.
Oh, and so we missed out on that item of significance.
Next time.
Yeah.
Actually, it's being fixed. Well, a shout out to. Yeah, Guitar Center wouldn't take it. They said it was beyond their control. They're beyond their capabilities. So I actually took it to Wild West Guitars.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to them in Pasadena.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's just a great shop.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah. Hopefully they can fix it. They actually weren't too confident about it either, but they're like, just leave it here. I'll call you in a few weeks. So.
Okay.
But what I brought, I couldn't bring the harp because I don't think it would fit in here. But I actually brought the books that we use to learn the Chinese harp. So the entire thing is in traditional Chinese. My instructor is Taiwanese. So he is like an award-winning, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And these are pieces, and this is how you read gukam music. So it's like just like numbers of the solfege. If you know music, it's actually really cool. It's a really cool way
it's numbers.
Yeah, so it's numbers, and they use specific markings that are just for guzheng, and you tape these. So these are like, supposedly they're made out of turtle shell. I'm not sure if that's true. They look like plastic to me.
Okay.
You tape
plastic
them.
Turtles.
Plastic turtles. You tape them on your fingers so that you don't have to grow out your nails, and you have these like kind of fake nails that you play on the harp.
Okay.
And it's just a really cool part of, I think, I just really wanted to learn a traditional instrument, and there weren't too many places, honestly, in the US or outside of Asia where you can go and learn.
So what does this tell you? I see 12 and 61. So what does that tell you?
What do you mean?
The numbers here.
Oh, so it would actually be 1, 2, 6, 1.
Oh,
so that would be do, re, la, do.
Oh, okay. And that tells you where to place your fingers?
Yeah, so it's interesting because each string, it's kind of like a piano, but it has the strings, kind of like a guitar. So it's structured piano-like because you're not really using frets. But then at some point you do use a fret style because it skips fa and it skips ti. So then we have to press in order to create those notes. But then, you know, when you hear the harp and there's that like Chinese twang, I don't know how to describe it. It's like like that kind of sound. Yeah. And so, it's just really cool because I'm learning all these traditional Chinese songs or these Chinese classics, like from Teresa Tang, for example. I grew up listening to her. My parents love her so much.
And she is what, a traditional Chinese singer?
I wouldn't say she's a traditional Chinese singer, but she is one of the biggest Chinese pop icons, especially in, I want to say the 70s. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on it.
Back when the old people were growing up, right?
70s and 80s, I want to say. Maybe in the 90s, because she passed away in the 90s. So she must have been big in the 80s, I want to say, because she had the 80s hair too. So.
Oh, okay.
She
and
did
shoulder pads.
Yes, for sure. Those videos had her doing that. But she was just such an icon, and my parents loved her. If you mention Tang Lei Guan to any
old person, they would know, right?
Person in the SGV.
Yeah.
They will know, and at all the karaoke's, the karaoke, KTV, as long as your parents are there, they're singing Teresa Tang. She's just classic, and and my instructor is amazing. He's younger than my parents, but I guess he's one of the only instructors left.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad.
It's a dying art.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, nobody's...
Yeah, that happens, doesn't it? Well,
yeah.
You're one of the ones carrying it.
that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And you know, I see it, and I feel like it's something that I want to preserve and pass down so that it doesn't completely die out. Kind of like the language too, Chu-Chao.
Yeah,
it's, right. And Cantonese. Yeah. Both of those languages are. You
would call them probably dying.
They are. Yeah. Even in Guangzhou, like Guangzhou.
Sure. Even Hong Kong. I was in Hong Kong last year, and you know, it's Mandarin everywhere now.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to hold on to its last strength.
Yeah, I know. And I shouldn't say it's Mandarin everywhere like I'm some authority.
But it is.
But I mean, you hear Mandarin all over the place.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know we have to break, right? Okay, so let's take a break and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Sometimes, even the best of us can slip up. That's why the law offices of Scott Wormuth are here to pick you back up again.
And while they strive to get you the biggest compensation possible, oh my gosh!
Their main concern is your health and recovery. They work closely with doctors and insurance companies to make sure you get the proper medical treatment.
Initial consultations are free, so give them a call.
At the law offices of Scott Wormuth, we're with you all the way.
I'm Scott Wormuth. We've been fighting for your rights for more than 40 years. Okay, we're back with Olivia Thai, and I'd like to get to our icebreaker question, which we customarily ask right out of the break. Just a simple question so that people can learn a little bit more about you or your thinking. Would you rather give up your smartphone or your computer?
At this point, in May of 2024, I will say my computer.
Yeah. That's what I would say also, because the smartphone does everything that your computer does.
It does, and I was a pretty early adopter of smartphones.
Yeah.
So I've been on that train for a very long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't even know when I use my computer really.
Right.
These days.
Yeah. And how about you, Victoria?
Yeah, probably my computer as well. I pretty much just use it like to write big long things, whether it's like an email that I need to put a lot of information in or.
Don't you also have to use it for your production or editing of?
Yeah, but I think that's I think that's separate. You know.
Yeah. Right.
I was thinking more like my laptop.
Yeah,
computer.
as far as what you. Yeah. You know what? This is probably. I'll bet you 95% of the people asked this question would say smartphone. This is probably an old set of icebreakers because I don't see that too many people would choose computer over smartphone
at this point.
Yeah. Right. I think this is old people icebreakers. So anyway, yeah, I'm interested in quite a few things here. American Idol, you were on American Idol, and how did you do?
So I was in the top 100, I would say.
Okay.
I got eliminated at group rounds, which is really, it's a funny story with the American Idol too, because I auditioned for 10 years.
Oh, really?
Every year for 10 years, I just don't give up, you know, just relentless.
Wow. How about Taiwan Idol?
Interestingly enough, it's not called Taiwan Idol. So this was actually I had to translate it a little bit because nobody really knows what ETTV's Top Idol means.
Okay.
But it is a Taiwanese channel, and it was actually filmed right here in the San Gabriel Valley.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it was all filmed here, except it looked like we were in Taiwan because it was all in Mandarin and Taiwanese. And
ETTV.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, super funny story about that too. I know how to read enough Chinese to, at that time, I was really struggling and financially. And so what I was doing was, at that time, it was just really popular to win money in singing competitions all around the SGV. It was so popular at that time. It was around the late 2000s, I would say. And so actually even from that point and before, people would do singing competitions and win cash prizes all the time. It was just a part of scouting talent. It was a part of fundraising. It was a part of pageants even. Like the people would sing and win scholarship money or cash. And so I would know enough Chinese to read the poster, which said singing competition, where the audition was, and what time. and what date.
I see.
So I was just going around, and I at that point I had won pretty much every competition here. I won every single competition that you could win in this area because I was using that to supplement my income.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not, ironically, I'm not a very competitive person. So I was just literally there. I just needed to pay the rent.
Yeah, right.
So I was there just winning all these competitions, and then it was just another poster. I thought it was a fancier poster, but I read that it was a singing competition. The audition was at the Hilton Hotel. Where, what time, and to show up. So I just went to that audition in a white T-shirt and jeans.
Oh, yeah?
And as soon as I walked in, I was like, what is going on? There are cameras everywhere. People are interviewing me.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know.
Because you just didn't know. You could just read a few words.
Right.
Yeah.
I could speak it more fluently than I could read it.
Yeah.
So I'm there like, what is going on? Is this a TV show? And of course I figure out that I just stepped into Taiwan Idol.
Wow.
And at some point during the competition, I was actually eliminated and then brought back from my YouTube fans.
Oh,
so
really?
Shout out to them. Thank you all so much.
Wow.
For that. And then in the end, I won.
All in, really?
Yeah.
In your white clothes, or did you?
Eventually, I figured out that it was a TV show, and then they actually gave us all makeovers.
Oh.
So it was so funny. I joined the competition, and I had the worst haircut ever. Because again, I just didn't have money, so it was like a $5 haircut or something. I went somewhere.
Oh, wow.
They messed up my hair, and so the TV show had us all have makeovers. So I went to the salon that was sponsoring the event, and they dyed my hair. They gave me this like really iconic, like A-line bob, which I've never had short hair in my life.
Oh,
it was like long in the front,
so they
short
cut
in the
your
back.
hair.
They cut my hair. They dyed it. That was the last time my hair was ever dyed.
Wow.
So 2009. I'm not a hair dyer,
yeah,
or a nail painter. I'm just not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know beauty things very well.
You're a simple person.
I'm quite simple. Yes.
Did you sing in Mandarin, or did they do English songs?
I did one song in Mandarin, and that was when I got eliminated.
Oh.
And so I learned my lesson.
I saw a really cool Instagram, probably you would call it a reel, of you when I went on your Instagram account and singing "Stand By Me."
Oh yeah, that was at the show, the last show
in
at
New
the Triad.
York. Yeah, that's what I thought. It was beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
It was beautiful.
It was so fun.
Yeah. That was just very nice the way you came in.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I thought that was nice. But I'm kind of interested in sort of your New York experience as well. But how did you end up at Columbia Business School?
Despite dropping out so many times, I don't think I touched base on that in this interview, but I dropped out of high school, dropped out of college 3 times. I'm just a serial dropout.
Okay.
I swear I didn't do that because I hate school. I did that because I had to. And I just had a very non-traditional teenage years. Both my parents served time in jail and prison. I was emancipated. So I had a very,
okay. And at what age were you emancipated?
16.
Okay.
Yeah. So very, just a not non-traditional life.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's just a whole nother area of.
Oh yeah. Another can of worms.
Discussion. Yeah.
But I just always, growing up, I think it was pretty, I think that was, if anybody knew who I was growing up, that was one of the things that really, I think, defined me as a person. I was in GATE. I was always kind of nerdy. I was just a nerdy kid. I loved learning. I still love learning.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I'm 35 and I'm learning new instruments and new languages.
Right.
Just really on the learning train. I read a lot of books every year, all the time.
Well, you've got a very active mind.
Yeah, I do.
Right.
It doesn't stop. It's constantly a hamster wheel. And so I think I just always wanted to experience and go to an Ivy League. And so when I finished at Berkeley, I didn't know if I was going to continue with learning anything. I mean, My brother is a pharmacist and an entrepreneur. My sister's a lawyer and an entrepreneur. And I was just kind of like this floating musician, college dropout, high school dropout person for such a long time. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe who knows? I'll apply and see what happens. And so I applied to the MBA or the executive MBA programs at USC, UCLA to keep it local. And then I was like, you know what? I'm probably not going to make it, but I'm going to apply to Cornell and Columbia just to see. Made it into all of them.
Wow.
And then Columbia was my top choice, even though it was in New York.
And why was it your top choice?
It was my top choice because of the rankings. So Columbia is a top 3 program.
Yeah.
I believe, if not number 1. And a lot of it depends on what you're looking at, right? The rankings.
Yeah. Well, Columbia has always fascinated me because I lived in the neighborhood.
You did? Upper West Side?
Morningside Heights. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I lived there, and my daughter is a graduate of Columbia.
No way. Okay.
Yeah.
Lions.
Right. So go Lions.
That's very rare from SGV.
Yeah. Actually, there weren't too many people from SGV in her class. There was, I know of at least 1 or 2, but not a lot. But
wow, we've got to connect.
Yeah. She's living in London now, getting a master's in London. But
amazing.
Yeah. So Columbia has always been very close to me.
Wow.
So you actually had an apartment for 5 days at least in New York.
I did.
But you basically didn't live in New York at all, huh?
I officially I lived there. I had my name on a pseudo lease for at least a month.
And where was that?
Upper West Side. Yeah. So I stayed on 109th.
Okay.
I don't know if you...
Right on Broadway or Amsterdam?
It was 109th and between Broadway and Amsterdam.
Yeah.
So 109th between Broadway and Amsterdam. I don't know if you're familiar with that street.
Yeah, I lived on 110th and Broadway.
Oh, way different. So we already know, right? You've lived in New York, which means 110th is the nice street. Then
maybe now.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So now it's considered the nicer street. And then you have 109th, which is nicknamed Rat Street.
Okay.
So I lived on 109th, but now that you kind of know my background a little bit, I can live in anything. I didn't have a bed until I was like 12.
Oh. Wow.
So I slept on the floor. I grew up in just a refugee house with a revolving door. Like we were always housing refugees in our house.
Sure.
I grew up in a kind of chaotic home, right? So I could live anywhere. I could live with pests. I could live in a Rat Street.
But you can't live in 109th and between Broadway and Amsterdam, though.
No, I did.
Well,
so I
for
stayed
5
there.
days.
So, okay, what happened was my first apartment there, I lived at a 6th floor walk up. So I walked 6 floors up every day, 6 floors down, got a lot. I was in great shape. And that was infested with roaches, which was really interesting because I didn't know there were that many species.
Oh, yeah.
There were so many
you had
species.
One of each?
Every day I saw a different species of roach.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of gross, but, what was it going to do to me, right?
It's funny you say that because when I lived in New York, our apartment at 110th and Broadway was like roach central. So, if you turn on a light, hundreds and hundreds of roaches would scatter, right? But when my daughter lived there, she rarely saw, I think she lived on the Upper West Side for a couple of years after she graduated, and she saw like 2 cockroaches, and it drove her, mad. If she saw like 1 cockroach every year,
What?
Yeah, it really surprised me.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
The power of pest control.
Yeah, I guess. Right. It was terrible when I lived there, but you experienced the same thing, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, it was just that was my first apartment.
Yeah.
And I stayed there.
Oh.
I was like, roaches, what are you gonna do? eat me.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
they're kind of gross.
Yeah, but
what am I going to do?
Learn to live with them.
You're just like, okay, well, I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
My parents escaped communism and lived in a refugee camp for a year and a half. You know, like,
right.
It's fine. Stayed there. Then my next apartment, which was in a basement on the same street, 2 buildings over, planned to stay there for the entire term. I was just kind of tired of flying back and forth. I was flying to New York twice a month. It's just a lot. And so I stayed there, and I noticed that and I was fine living in a basement. Again, I've just lived in living rooms and floors and kinds of places growing up, and I didn't care. So I lived in the basement, and I start seeing these like tiny little spider looking things. They're like this small. And I was just squishing them. It wasn't very vegan, but it's just like, oh, okay, weird. They're these little spiders that don't move. They look like they're stunned. And they're just tiny little things, and I was just squishing them. And I swear within those 5 days, I probably killed over 100 of them. Right?
Yeah.
I was just like squishing.
Wow.
There's so many.
Yeah.
And then one day I was just sleeping. I just thought they were harmless spiders. Because it's like, oh, spiders are good because they eat other bugs.
Yeah.
So it was interesting because I never saw a roach there, but I saw those little spiders. So I just thought the spiders were eating the bugs. Then I woke up one day and somehow I had this strange thought, an epiphany, if you will, that they were ticks.
Oh.
So I started looking up pictures of ticks and how their behavior was. And it was true. They were like small, they had 8 legs, and they would not move because they were waiting to prey, to catch something.
Gross.
So I was like, I'm okay with spiders. I'm okay with roaches. But I'm not okay with Lyme disease.
Yeah.
So I immediately freaked out. And I was like, normally I'm pretty calm. So I was calm freaking out. And I was like, let me tell the manager and let me just tell him I'm leaving. Because whether it's a tick infestation or something else, I guess I have the right to leave. Yeah. So I just left and started living at the Hyatt.
Oh, wow.
But later I found out that I was just ignorant and they were spider beetles. They weren't ticks.
Okay.
So they actually had 6 legs and 2 antennas that looked like legs. So they looked like spiders, but they weren't ticks, and they were just spider beetles. And in hindsight, I was like, well, I guess I would have been... Yeah, I would have been okay with living with those guys.
Oh, yeah.
But it was just a sign to like get out. So I just ended up living at the hotel for my entire term.
Oh, wow.
At Columbia.
Well, now's the time of the show where you tell me that New York is the greatest city in the world and that you love it beyond compare.
I do, though.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Do I love it more than SGV? No.
Okay.
But I do love New York.
Okay.
I love New York. And at first, I think my husband, the few times that because we visited a few times, and I remember just like me and my husband were just, I love New York because I love, the subway.
Yeah,
and
everything.
you get to see so many things and there's so many things happening. And my husband just thought it was dirty.
Oh,
it was like, this is a dirty place and I don't get it, but.
And it's not even dirty compared to what it was.
You think so?
I think so. I mean, again, I'm comparing
now.
It to the 70s, but
I get it. Okay.
People actually were alive in the 70s, and there was human existence in the 70s, but it was dirtier. It was definitely dirtier.
Wow.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That is gross.
Oh, I mean, the subways were filled with graffiti.
It still is.
Oh, not like then.
Really?
They were just covered up. Yeah, covered up. Yeah. Oh, I don't see much graffiti on subways there now.
Wow. Okay, well maybe we're just ungrateful. We're just living the good life at this point.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, 70s was like the downtime for New York, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it got cleaned up, right? And then I mean, it's just a great city.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
But I always say the SGV takes after New York. I mean, you've got neighborhoods, you've got all the ethnic, variety here. It's kind of like the new New York to me. I mean, it's like,
okay,
you'll be talking about the SGV in 100 years the way people talk about New York. It's like the neighborhoods. And,
I see the parallels that you're drawing here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just feel so fortunate to be experiencing both.
Yeah.
And like my friends and my family, we talk about this all the time. There's no place like the SGV.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like there's no place like New York.
Exactly.
Right? But I guess that's unique in a lot of places. It's just, it's true.
Yeah.
And I travel so much and seen a lot of the world, not all of the world, but a lot of the world. And there's just no place like home.
Yeah.
No place like SGV.
I love New York, but I love Pasadena too.
Right?
You know, it's just like, wow, it's special.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Enough about my blabbering. We're
I'm enjoying the blabbering.
Oh yeah,
this is great.
I am too.
I'm glad we would have been neighbors.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you would have been a block over. Yeah, you were closer to Central Park by a block.
Yes.
Okay, so I know I've probably missed something here. We've got to do our SGV3, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Olivia, the SGV3 is where you identify for us, or you tell us what your 3 favorite experiences, places, or whatever in San Gabriel Valley.
Okay. I would say the top unique thing that I just can't find anywhere outside of SGV is the Chu Chow food. Like the Chu Chow experience is so unique to the San Gabriel Valley.
So where do you experience that? Where do you feel it?
So, okay. So part of the culture is that we have a very specific foods. Like for example, there's this thing called olwa, which is in Taiwanese, it's or Mandarin, it's called owajian, which is like oyster pancake, right? It's a dish, and the Taiwanese make a version of it, but it's completely different from the Teochew version, and you can only get that here, or I guess like Singapore, or in like Chaozhou, like the actual place in China, or here.
Really?
So it's really interesting how like, and those are the restaurants that serve it. Like, so I've learned that in the SGV, if you see that a restaurant starts with Kim, like Kim Ki or Kim something.
Is that a sign of?
Yeah.
I'll say Chaozhou because that's how I'm used to saying it.
Right. Yeah. It's a Chaozhou restaurant.
Okay.
Anytime you say,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you'll always know that it's Kim Ki, Kim something. So Kim is actually Kim, which is gold. Okay. And the Chu Chow people, we love our gold.
Yeah, right.
So anytime it's like Kim something, we already know that it's going to be like a Chinese from Vietnam kind of experience or a restaurant. And I just don't see that anywhere else because I think, I could be wrong, but I think SGV has one of the largest concentrations of Chaozhou people from Vietnam. So it's a very specific type of cuisine, a very specific culture. It's usually only a breakfast thing.
Oh, is it?
So we're eating, noodle soup in the morning with our olwa, with our ta guoi, which is like a rice cake. It's a Chu Chow version of a rice cake, so it's not chewy like the Korean or the Japanese mochi type of tteok. It's not that. It's ta guoi. It's like guoi, which is like rice cake, and we have that here. And then just all these different like Chu Chow specific dishes that are here. And I just you can't find in New York. If you do, it's not nearly as good as it is here, and I would say that's like my top experience of San Gabriel Valley for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, how about a second?
So my second one is a little bit more specific. I'm assuming people know where your office is.
They may not know.
They don't.
But we're at Valley and San Gabriel Boulevard.
Yeah. So I actually grew up right down the street. My childhood home is on Walnut Street. But I just grew up around here, right? And of course, I think I'm just going to be talking about food. I just love the food here. But downstairs from your office, there's a bakery called Oh My Pan.
Yeah.
They make this sandwich. and it's only in the fridge, and it's only really available before 12 o'clock.
Oh, really?
Okay, so it's 2 sandwiches in the fridge. One is a ham and egg, and the other one is a shredded pork, which if you're Asian or specifically, I guess, Chinese, it's basically like flossy pork. Like it's like a jerky kind of, and they put it in a sandwich, and it's a Taiwanese bakery downstairs that has a lot of Japanese influence on my pan, and my husband and I just love those sandwiches so much. And I told him that these sandwiches were from Japan, which I thought they were, because I was like, oh, this is a Japanese sandwich. I've been eating them for over 10 years. I love the bakery downstairs. And so we did a 1-month tour in Asia, and we were traveling through Japan, Taiwan, Vietnam, Thailand, and I think we went back to Taiwan. It was just a whole month in Asia. And I was like, oh, you've got to experience the real authentic version of that sandwich in Asia, because that's where it comes from. So we're traveling all throughout Asia, and we couldn't find a sandwich that was nearly as good as the one right here in San Gabriel.
Wow, that's amazing, huh?
Yeah, and we just love that sandwich so much.
So you're going to stock up. You know, if you want to come back tonight, we can drill a hole, because it's right below us.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we can break into the refrigerator.
What a great idea. I mean, I'm pretty sure they run out by 12.
Oh, okay. So, so we'll do it at like 3 a.m. And,
that's a good idea.
As long as they're all made.
Yeah, I was just so surprised. Like, if you go to Oh My Pan after 12, you'd be lucky. Like, I'm going to go downstairs and check after this. Oh, yeah. And I don't know if I'm going to find any more sandwiches.
You're right on. Wow. You better get down there. Yeah. We may not even hear number 3 now.
I know at this point.
Okay. What's number 3? Number
3 has to be the boba culture.
Oh, yeah.
There is no boba culture like the one here.
Yeah. I believe that's true just from what I see, you know. Yeah. Like, I just see my kids, they come back because they both live, far away.
Right.
And when they come back, like, they always stop right on San Gabriel. There's a place. They get their boba.
Yep.
Yeah. And like, there's no place as good as here for that.
Yeah, other than Taiwan.
Yeah.
I think Taiwan would be okay, fine. I guess Taiwan would be number 1.
Okay.
But here is I think I would place it second.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, well, those are 3 very interesting. First time anybody's mentioned Oh My Pan.
Great.
Yeah, so that's the first time. Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. Well, I guess we need to wrap up. Unfortunately, boy, I didn't get to half of what I wanted to get to.
We'll have to do this again.
I know, definitely, because there's just a whole lot to get into. I mean, we didn't even move above 110th Street.
We didn't.
Great. Thank you very much for being a guest. We enjoyed it. I'm sure that everybody enjoyed this show. Very sort of lively and, lots of interesting topics. If you want to help support us, please go to Patreon, and we have various, what would you describe it as?
There's some behind-the-scenes content.
Yeah, behind the scenes.
Some of the tiers will have early access to the shows.
Yeah. And Russell's weekly newsletter. Remember that you can subscribe to that. Go on and buy some goodies at our store. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back next week for another interesting show, and Russell will be back next week, so you'll have a little, better presentation, but you won't have a better guest. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Really, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the MySGV podcast. Check out more of our content on our website, mysgv.net. This show was produced by Scott Wormuth, directed by Russell Mano, edited by Victoria Allers, and original music by Yone OG. If you'd like to join us next week as we capture and share more stories from our diverse community. Feel welcome.
Nice mother. No kind of mother.